But look, I threw out the title, Sales Not Where You Want Them, Solve the Problem, okay? And I want to start at the top by saying the tendency is to take it mega emotional, right? The sales are not where you want them. The tendency is to doubt yourself. The tendency is to think your art sucks, to think it's you, or you got something else out there to blame. You get emotional about it. It's actually just a problem that needs to be broken down into its subsequent pieces, right? And it can be different in some different situations. So I thought we would talk through some of what these situations are that we've seen and we continue to see, okay? Massive amount of time. And I think when you, figuring out how to be unemotional about it, figuring out that it is just a problem like anything else, a math problem, and you have to work on process of elimination to solve it, right? For process of elimination, trial and error, that's a heuristic in and of itself, right? That's like the most simple example of a heuristic, like a way to think through this and a way to solve the problem. But if you want, I will start at the top and rattle off some of the reasons why sales are not where you want them, okay? And you figure out where you want to start breaking and abstracting.
Okay.
Number one, okay, is you're not in the game. Meaning you're not even attempting to sell, period, okay? And yes, thank you, Captain Obvious, but it needs to be said, okay? I talk to hundreds of artists and photographers a week, and a whole bunch of them are talking about all the reasons why their work is not selling. And then I ask them whether or not they have their work in their hands that they can sell, and they say, no, I don't. I've never printed it. I've never tried. What do I use? Example all the time. Nick, I'm gonna hire you to go door to door, sell knives. What would you take door to door?
I might bring the knives. I might bring them with me.
Yes. So if you're trying to go door to door and you're telling me you're trying to sell your art and you have pictures in a catalog instead of the actual product, you're not serious. You're not serious.
Yeah, it's another way of saying that too. It's like, would you ever do an art show without bringing your art, or like just have everybody walk by your booth and all you have is a catalog, right? That's all there is. It's insane.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that do that. There's a lot of people that do that. What's up, Sandra? Good to see you. We had a good talk this week, I think, Sandra. We had a good talk. We had some good feedback, or some good advice, I should say. So number one is that you're not even in the game because you're not selling, right? Number two is the validation, right? You've not validated whether or not your art will sell. Validation, simply said, is selling your art or photography to people not named mother, father, sister, brother, girlfriend, right? That type of thing. And it's really important. And that's the first layer of validation, okay? There's an additional layer of validation, which means you might have sold some art to people not named mom, dad, brother, sister, to some strangers, but it's just never a big enough niche that's actually going to take you to where you want to be, right? The title is sales.
Point right there.
You want them. So let's come back to it. Let's come back to it, right? We now live in essentially a digital age, okay? And you can make an argument about whether or not it's truly a digital age or not, but I mean, you come back with what facts you have, okay? I am a passionate soccer follower, okay? That's my sport that I love watching. All of the club teams right now are split out to their nations to go play national friendlies and in this thing called the UEFA Cup. The sheer number of players that are coming back with COVID positive on this is out of control, okay? They travel to their corresponding countries, met up with their teammates, international teammates, they're playing these games, they're spread out through Europe, South America, and a lot of them are getting COVID.
Did I see yesterday that Cristiano Ronaldo got it? He got it, didn't he?
Yep. And Weston McKennie, the American that's on that team, by the way, plays with him on that team, an American, 22 years old, okay? Coming up. We're coming up! I'm talking to my friends in New York, and they're talking about putting a potential lockdown back in place. I'm looking at Bill Gates today in a headline, and Bill Gates is saying things are never going to go back to normal unless we have a vaccine that works. So look, again, I'm not going to let that get me down. I'm an optimist. I'm not going to tolerate a new lockdown, but it is underscored by the fact that we are not going back anytime soon. I think that's safe to say, right? Who knows if it's election chicanery or whatever it is, but it looks to me like we're probably another year away from it being normal. So it underscores that if you're going to be selling your art and photography, the offline venues and the thought that they might come back is just not a reality, okay? So let's take this back to sales, not where you want them. A huge problem then is the chicken and the egg. how do you get the attention to sell your art if you don't have any, right? Like if you come in and you have 0 email list, you have 0 Instagram followers, 0 Facebook followers, right? You just started all of those things. You're just starting your business from scratch. That's a problem in and of itself to solve, right? We have to have some strategies and tactics in that one, right? So that's a solution. That's one of the problems within this problem. You're not doing your marketing consistently, or you're not doing your marketing at all. Again, there's levels to that, right? But I think the reason that we're having this conversation now, and then I want you to chime in and give your 2 cents on that. But the reason that we're having this conversation now is all of these problems are relatively easy to solve. And the easiest way to solve them is to make sure that you're working exclusively on fixing the problem that you have, to the detriment of doing anything else. And this is a big learning for us, right? We can't have the people that are in this situation, that are customers, working on anything but what is going to solve this individual problem. So it's no different than going into the doctor. There's the diagnosis, and there's the cure, the medicine, right? And I that's sort of that's sort of where I'm at in my mind. But you chime in. You tell me where you're at.
Yeah, I like that. I think like I'll take it a slightly different direction, and just the way that my mind is unpacking it, And it's like we start at art storefronts with validation, right? We want to know before we will work with anyone at art storefronts, right? Like we do this as hard as we can. Of course, some people slip through, but you have to have validated that your art will sell. Right. And that's what Pat said earlier, which is
at the top.
You have to have sold some pieces, right, to someone that's not like your mom or your dad or your best friend. Right. So some strangers is the best way of saying it. Right. It's not that hard to do. It's not hard at all to do. You can do it in one day or one weekend. Right. And you just have to get that done. Right. Because we can't solve that problem. We can't solve that problem. And so then if you have validated your art, right? What I think with that is, like, there's some layers to that, right? You validated that, people will buy your talents. They will buy a product of yours with that contains your talent, yes. i.e. that art, right?
Yes.
It tells me also that you are capable of selling your own art. You have to be capable of selling it. That doesn't mean you have to be like a car salesman and you have to pitch people and all this stuff, but you have to be capable of like executing enough. Like it could be just going live on Facebook. It could be just listing it on Facebook or Instagram, just like posting it and having a good deal. It could be doing having a booth at an art show in non-pandemic times, or even during pandemic times, right? If there's a center of your city or town where people are walking, even with masks on, we've even had people do stuff in their front yard, right? If they have foot traffic or cars driving by, setting up a very small minor thing. And you say, hey, it's COVID. I'm an artist. I'm having a major art sale here. You know what I mean? Thinking about starting my art business, and you've got slashed prices on it, right? Like even if this is the first stuff you've ever sold, the price that you would intend to sell it at later on might be, let's say you're going to sell a piece for or you want to sell something for like 500. So you have that crossed out and you say, I'm 250 or 200, right? Until they're gone, until these 3 pieces are gone, right? And there's so many ways of actually doing that, but you show that you can sell your art, right? That's the second layer to it, right? But after that,
to that point, to chime in for 1 second, everyone has a different set of circumstances. And we've got this guy, shout out to AMZ. We love AMZ. He comes on all of our art business workshops, and he was asking thrice weekly Zoom sessions. You can join. Amazing. Link in the bio. Did I get a link in the bio on this one? I might have messed it up and just put the demo request. Anyway, you have to use what circumstances are best for you. He's asking me today, Nick, questions about, okay, when I do the live show, what do I do? What do I do? Where does that guy live? Do you know where he lives?
No.
New Orleans.
Ooh.
Right adjacent to the quarter, I believe. Would you be telling him to do live art shows if he lived right there and you knew that guy played the guitar? No, you would not.
Open the door, get outside.
Get outside. Get on a corner, hold the guitar, and set up that art, right?
Yeah, and validate right there, right?
Which is not to say he's not validated. He's been selling art for a long time.
Right.
Right. The larger point is, right, to your point, we all have a little different set of circumstances. This all goes back to solving the sales and the problem, right? And you have to validate, okay? And then it's like a decision tree. Okay, you have to validate your art. Okay, great. Do you have any sort of social following? And it can be on a business page or an Instagram personal account. No, I don't have either of those two. Okay, next, check down. Do you have a big personal following on your Facebook page? You do? 3,500? Okay, that's enough. Or 2,500 or 1,000. Let's try a live there first. Otherwise, if you have something that gives you the ability to do it locally, in person, you've got the French Quarter, one of the biggest internationally traveled venues, new groups of people every single solitary weekend. Like, you're just looking to have 25 to 30 conversations, right? You're looking to have 25 to 30 conversations. How many conversations would you do if you had an art show and you were in a booth? You'd have 25 to 30 conversations, right? So whether you do it in a social context or whether you do it in the booth, it doesn't matter to us, but you got to get out there and do it.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to be able to do that, right? That's the second part. Now, after that, right? So I said, you've validated that your art will sell to strangers, right? And that covers the fact that you personally, as a human being, right, can actually execute and sell your art. You've gotten that done, right? Those are two big boxes that you're checking. After that, what matters is your content scalable, right? And how scalable is it? Now, the content that the subject matter,
you got to define. You got to define scalable. Not everyone knows that. Sure.
Okay. So and there is no definitive answer on this too. You're going to have to just you figure that out kind of as you go, right? But the size of how big of an art business you can build, right? It will depend from there on your subject matter, i.e., do you paint elephants? Do you shoot cityscapes? Like, what is it, right? What is your subject matter? And how marketable that is. How scalable means, like, how big of a business can you build with it? How big of a market, how big of an audience is there that is actually really passionate about that subject matter that you can attack, right? That you can target. That's going to determine the scalability of that art business, right? And so there's no way of just like of asking me or asking you, like, hey, do I have a scalable art business? It's all a guess, right? It's all a guess. But I'll tell you this. If it's really hard for you to target your audience, and especially if you're doing marketing tactics and you just don't know where they are and like you don't know how to find them, it's the first sign that that you're going to have a difficult time scaling your art business.
What was the Mark Cuban hack?
The Mark Cuban, what he said was something to the tune of, when he's looking at like when he's getting pitched on startups, and and he's trying to figure out whether the market they're going after is big enough. You know what I mean? Like, can they build a big enough company? Is it worth investing in and stuff like that? He used to go to like the Barnes and Noble, like the retail bookstores, and go to the magazine section. And he would look to see if there was a magazine on that topic. And if there was multiple, then it was a really big market, right? So you start thinking about that. Like, you go in front of, like, what do you see in the magazine? I see cars, guns, hunting, fishing, like, boats. I mean, tons. Yeah, fashion. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like jewelry, like, I mean, there's everything, right? But those are really, really big markets. And I've always had, as you know, I've had my own heuristic for this, like my own like mental shortcut, which is like, if other brands and other types of manufacturers are already targeting that audience, like, then it's a good audience, right? Because it's very defined, right? And a very obvious example, right, that I'll say that everybody can understand is like, like college alumni, right, of a certain school. Like, I went to USC in Southern California. The USC Trojan fan base, highly targetable, highly marketable, right? You can target alumni. They love it. It's you know what I mean? They are passionate about their school. And this goes for any school, but like, so how do you know that that's a great audience? Well, there are sweatshirt manufacturers selling sweatshirts to that audience, hats, posters, keychains, glasses.
Helping
you know
market.
What I mean? Like,
helping market.
Every single thing you can imagine. It is a market that already exists. So, that's another way of reverse engineering a good market. But ultimately, like, it's not about being perfect about the market you choose. It's just about trying new stuff, right? throughout time, testing new stuff. And so you start with what you have. You validated something. That means that's why I think those first two components are so important, right? You validated your talent, right? And then you've sold a piece, which shows that you've got some business hustle in you, at least in the tiniest, smallest bit. You don't need to have like overextensive hustle. You got to have something in you, right? Some common sense in you to be able to make a sale happen, right? And if you do those two things, you've got a really good start right there. And then from there, you'll iterate over years. Every single business iterates, every single one. Art storefronts today looks completely different than we did 7 years ago. Like,
it looks completely different than we did 5 months ago.
Every business I've ever started looked dramatically different, after 5 years or 7 years than it did on day one. This is how every business works. I mean, there's like extensive books written about this, right? Like the Sony Corporation, right? Started off like making microwaves or something like that, right? Like, I mean, it's just, there's story after story about how businesses start and then where they end up. And so you're starting off with the validation, and then you ultimately will iterate your way to building a bigger art business. So it's really good to have that mental mindset, because that's how it's just going to go. And you know what I see though, Pat? You know what I see? I see a lot of people who they have one type of content, or maybe they have like 3 types of content. They've never really sold a lot of it. Maybe they've never even validated it, but they have their content, right? And then they go for that content. And then if it doesn't work, and they can't figure out their marketing and they can't get traction, it's over. And they're actually really talented.
Yeah.
They might be a really talented painter, and they're painting like stuff where you're like, why are you painting that? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I know it makes you feel good. And so I get that. Like, I'm not knocking that at all. Like, I really appreciate that. But there's a difference between like, what do you want to do with it, right? If you just want to like try to sell, maybe you sell one every year, and you don't really care about making any money on it, then that's success to you. Then that's what matters. Like, all that matters is what is success to you. But I'm speaking to a lot of the people that we work with, you know what I mean? Or that we talk to. They want to have a business. They want, their sales are not where they want them. The title of this episode, right? Their sales are not where they want them, and they really want to get to the next level, and they want to know how to get there, right? And it's our job to unpack these different things to allow people to see what they can do to fix their current problem. You know what I mean? Focus on it and fix it, and then be in a better situation going forward.
Yep. So we've got the validation, and I think, do you have attention or do you not have attention? If you do, you can do it very easily digitally. If you don't, probably need to figure out a way to do it offline, right? And the larger point too, if the sales are not where you are, like, you might, and we continue to see this, you might have validated your art. You might have an audience that likes it, but it's just never going to be a big business, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You'd be lucky to sell like $5,000 to $6,000 to $7,000 a year in that. Now, again, no one's saying you're a crappy artist. No one's saying you're a crappy photographer. All they're saying is this particular market and this niche that you're in is very, very small, right? So you need to test some new things, come up with some new ideas that might pivot and might put you into a new circle, right? Into a new idea, into a new style, into a new subject matter, into a crazy way of spinning it, into a new backstory. It doesn't matter. All it is experimentation, right? Like experimentation. And again, the stat that blows me away, do you know how many pieces were in Dali's collection when he died?
How many?
45,000.
45,000.
Unsold pieces that his family had to squabble over for like, I don't even know how long. But what do you think that guy was doing? Right? How many of those were winners versus how many of those were losers for him? Right?
Yeah.
Like, majority were like losers, but he was just taking shots.
Yeah.
Like, you
believe it or not.
Good.
Oh, I was going to say, I actually like probably about 10 years ago, I went to London, to the Tate Museum in London. It's a very famous museum. And there was a Dali exhibit there, like one of the, it was a massive exhibit. And so I saw a ton of his work. And you're right, it ranged from, I mean, there was everything. There was very simple stuff. There was very complex stuff. The subject matter ranged around. I mean, it was remarkable. He was iterating and iterating and iterating, Pat, like crazy. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Like, He was.
Yep. And it really does come down to a situation where it's how many arrows you fire, right? It's how many arrows you fire. Like, again, depending on where your sales are at, if they're not where you want them to be, you have to figure out how to solve this problem. And for some of you guys, you're very good at what you do. You just don't have a subject material that is resonating, right? And essentially what you're saying is like, you're telling me you want a big business. And I'm saying, okay, in order to get a big business, you have to be able to hit the bullseye. Sorry, I got a call. You want a big business, right? Right. So in order to be able to hit the business, you need to hit a bullseye at the archery target, right? And what you're telling me is I'm only going to fire one arrow. I'm only going to do my paintings of palm trees. That's all I'm going to do, right? Or my photos of palm trees. And so you're saying you're going to shoot one arrow. Dolly, you could see, he was shooting at every angle imaginable, right? He fired thousands of arrows, and stands to reason he had more of a chance that he was going to hit, right? I mean,
there you go.
But each one I really do believe is a problem. And we're very cognizant of the fact, especially in terms of our customer base, we've got everything. We've got not validated, period, right? We've got not working on their marketing, period, right? We've got not even, well, they have a website if they're with us, but doesn't have samples, not attempting to sell the finished product, period, right? We have people that are validated, but too small of a niche, right? And so what is the task there? And you realize that when you teach big picture and you try to teach everybody, you've got some people in there that are learning and are attempting to grow their business when they've not validated their art. That's a recipe for disaster, right? You've got people that are grinding and trying to build a following on a niche that is never going to map to their ambition. So that's a problem. They're working on the wrong thing, right? So we literally have to be like doctors and diagnose these situations on a case-by-case basis and provide the recommended remedy, right? And it's nothing to get emotional about. I honestly believe it's not anything to get emotional about. You've got a problem. We have to solve the problem and get you on the path. That's it.
Right. Exactly. So product comes first, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of an interest, like it's product comes first. And then with that, you apply marketing to a product that's going to work, and you will get a result, right? If you do the requisite marketing with the right product, you're going to get a result. That result will be way bigger if it is a highly marketable niche. And also that's not automatic. That's not automatic. And if the artist or the photographer executes on the marketing as much as possible and as effectively as possible, right? Because we see people who have great niches and they're extremely talented, and they might even be doing like $100,000 a year in sales, right? And you and I talk about it. We're like, my goodness, they could probably be doing $1 million if they actually took the marketing seriously, like as seriously as they should, right? Focused on lead generation and doing that, because I mean, the more traction you get, the easier lead generation becomes. You know what I mean? Like it gets easier and easier. More people want to work with you. You get what works more often. You're compounding your own skill set and your own learnings, right? And so as you continue going along, that's obviously like the whole point of like doubling down on your business, why you want to invest profits into your business as it grows, because the return on those profits continues to get higher and higher, right? Yeah. Always. That's how it works. Like the business is getting better. And so the return on every dollar you're putting in is going to be way better than the first dollars you put in, right? So stepping on the gas there is really important, But like I said, there's people, I mean, who are at that level, at a great level. It could be 50,000 or 100,000. That could be going way, way, way further with it. It's amazing.
You know what I love? Obviously I love the analogies, but I feel like if you're questioning the size of your niche and where you're at and what that all looks like and what it all could potentially look like, the analogy to think about is like you started the business with a style that you have validated, and it's like buying a restaurant on a good street on Main Street, right? But the restaurant, maybe it's break even, right? Or maybe it's barely profitable and you want a bigger one. You already have the restaurant though. So you can keep the restaurant open, keep the doors open, right? Keep the income coming in, and then just rapidly iterate on some new dishes, right? And then what you might find is you found a new dish that works, You close the restaurant for 48 hours. You change everything, the decor, the menus, the name, the title. You reopen the restaurant back up. You still own that land. You still own that building. Everyone knows where to find you, but you now have a restaurant that might potentially map, right? So, there's a lot that are in a great position in the sense that they've got some momentum. They've got a list. People know who they are. They have a niche that's not working. And that's owning the restaurant. You just need to get some new dishes in there, right?
By the way, yeah,
think about
it is. And then, and in addition to that, how often have we been seeing where people have pivoted their subject matter, right? And they're essentially utilizing that to bring people in for lead generation, right? And they're selling that content, of course. But then those people fall in love with you and your talent and all that stuff when you do the right marketing, right? And what do? They start buying the other stuff, the stuff that was tougher to market. And so you win anyway. You win anyway, right? So you can still sell the stuff that you're passionate about, and you know what I mean, and still paint that stuff. It may not sell as well, but it doesn't mean you got to take it off, right? And like take it all down and like shut that down. It's not at all. It's like it's just really figuring out what's going to resonate the most and utilizing that to get attention. That's the key, right? You got to get attention.
People get so emotional about this, right? And it's like, look, it's hard. Okay, it's hard when you have a large body of work, right? Like, and the photographer's just like, well, I've been shooting this for 3 years. Or I've been shooting this for 10 years. It's like, those weren't wasted hours. You learned a ton. You got some great subject material. The material is just not resonating, and you have to be true about that. And everyone, like, the thing that bums me out is seeing these situations, and I'm not going to name names, but you see these situations where they're grinding so hard on their marketing, right? And it's like they're out there on the street in front of this restaurant, blowing the whistle and the horn and putting new ads in the paper and everything else because they're married to their vision, right? They're married to their vision emotionally. So, and no one, you have to just go in and change the cook a little bit. You got to change the dishes, right?
Yeah.
It's hard not to get emotional about this, but you know what? That's also the brutality of the market. There's no emotion in the market. The market just is what it is. I think another one of these problems that we're talking about solving is like when to pivot, how to go about it, what the playbook looks like, and how not to spend the next 3 years of your life hard at work on your marketing when the market has told you your product is not going to map to your ambitions. That's a hard conversation to have, but it's one that needs to happen.
It is. I mean, it's a hard conversation to have, but if you've ever been a business owner, everyone goes through it. You know what I mean? Like, let me ask you, right? Have you ever started a business where you thought the product was going to be amazing and it was just a total flop?
Multiple times. Had to learn.
Me too. Me too. And did it hurt a little bit?
I did. It did.
Absolutely.
Most importantly, in hindsight, knowing that like the one precious commodity that we all have so little of, time, like it hurt that way the hardest, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of wasted time. A lot of wasted
time.
And you don't realize that till you get older and wiser. Right? Exactly. And that's why we, that's why you and I talk about this, right? Like, yeah.
And I mean, because we've been there, we understand, like, I mean, I was really hurt when it happened to me in the first few times. Nowadays, it doesn't matter, like, because I know it's kind of like, it's a very similar thing. Like if you go to buy a house, like your first house, and you get so emotionally wrapped up, and then you get like outbid and you lose it, and you were so attached to it. You know what I mean? You were like, you had imagined your life there, right? And it got snatched out from underneath you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe it. What a huge mistake. All of that. It hurts, right? But eventually you learn, I got to go about this unemotionally because I just don't know what the market's going to do. I just don't know. You can't be sure. You have to.
It happened to us in the first business we ever started.
Absolutely, it did.
That original name that we had all that time, all that energy, all that effort, all that promotion, all that marketing, all that work into got snatched right away from us, didn't it?
Yeah.
We had a name on this business that we worked on for years. Okay. And we couldn't get the trademark to go through. And so the lawyer's like, look, you can keep working on this. And if you build this into a big business, they can sue you and take it all away. So what do you want to do? And we had to change it on the spot. We had a trade show coming up. We literally had to change it like a 48-hour period. And it hurt. It hurt.
Yeah.
It took a long time to get over it. Almost never did get over it. Maybe I'm not over it still. So the point is, I understand the sentiment and the feeling, right? Like I get it. I get it, but you have to map to the output. Where do you want the business to be?
Yeah, exactly. And you just have to look back and you go, even if you spent 2 years or 3 years, building that content up, if it's not going to work, and you've actually checked all the boxes, right? You're doing the marketing work. You're not like shortcutting and all that stuff. And the whole thing is like, it's not working and it's not really mapping to your ambitions. I like the mapping to the ambitions, because it could mean that like, maybe you're only, you in the last year, maybe you sold a couple $1,000s, but you're like, that's not what I'm going for here. I was looking to be at 20 or 30 or $40,000, right? Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then you have to reevaluate. But I think, the other thing is too, is that, which is like so profound, is that unlike a lot of other businesses, as an artist or a photographer, you don't have to abandon everything you did. No. You don't have to, right? Like, you do tend to do that with other types of businesses. It's like, the product didn't work, forget it. It's too hard to like scale a product you have to manufacture, or software you have to build and maintain, things like that. You don't do that. You move on, right? But with artists, like all of it wasn't for naught. You still get to use that, and then you can very quickly iterate using all the skills and talents that you've gained up to move to that next thing that's slightly or maybe dramatically more marketable than what you currently have. And what's crazy is how fast you can do it. Like being an inventor. Like let me talk about this for a second, right? Being an inventor. You guys are all inventors as artists or photographers. Do you understand how profound that is? As an inventor, you can create your own product and make it for sale. This is an envious situation here, right?
With almost no overhead. With almost no
overhead. You are inventors.
No production time. Amazing.
I will say this, like I will say this out loud. I got into software development. I was attracted to software development because I realized that I could invent products like that, right? It was a way to be able to invent products. I could be an inventor, and like, I understand the profundity of that. Otherwise, I'm not an engineer. A
classically
physical product. Yeah. A physical product engineer, or somebody who's going to invent some sort of a switch or widget, or, like a camera, like VR or something like that. Like, I'm never going to do that. Right. So, I found a way to become an inventor, and there's huge advantages and arbitrage in that. Right. And you guys, as artists and photographers, you guys are inventors. So you could go create a new product tomorrow. And we see that happening. Like one of our best-selling painters, we had her. We were talking about her in one of our recent customer workshops, right? And she painted Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 2 days after she passed away. And for the next 48 hours after that, she sold the original and dozens and dozens and dozens of prints in like 48, 72 hours, right? And if she was just marketing her same work in that 72 hours, she would have never had those sales. Never, because her audience already knew about her content, right? So she what did she do? She invented a product on the spot, okay? And with her time and energy, that's all it costed her. And she blasted it out to everybody on her email list and social media, and she sold a ton of it, right? And now she's on doing even more tests, because I think it blew her mind. And this is somebody who sells really well. Who you would otherwise be like, why is she even testing new content? Well, she is. And it's part of the reason why she's really successful.
I should say too, one of the other things that we're going to have to work through and that we're going to have to solve for is this notion of, when do you know? Mm-hmm. When do you know that it's been validated or not validated, right? Because there's a lot of people that'll say like, oh yeah, my stuff just won't sell. And you essentially scored the game and lost before you've even played the 4 quarters, right? You don't know yet. Because not enough people have seen it. So we're gonna have to solve for that part of the solution too. And I think that'll take some time. Yeah.
Yep, it will. And it's not a perfect science. It's more of like guidelines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more guidelines, but we know, I think the best part, again, I go back to, is that even if you got to make a pivot, it's not, it shouldn't even be like a big deal. It's like, just try it. Like, okay, we're looking at the scenario. It looks like it's not really working. The headwinds, they're in your face, right? Like you're pushing the cart up the hill. It kind of seems like that. You might be doing some things wrong. You might not be executing right, but hey, it doesn't hurt to try a new thing. It doesn't hurt to just try it, and see what happens. Because that may be the thing that just opens everything up. And we've seen that happen. So like we've been seeing it happen more frequently as we've been talking about it, where some of our members say, oh my gosh, like I listened to this, I listened to you guys talking about the pivot and I did it. And I can't believe what happened. All of a sudden it's like things are working, right? I've been banging my head against the wall, trying to push the content that I had. And all I needed to do was just switch. And it's like, boom, all of a sudden people are signing up for my email list. People are sharing my posts and I'm getting sales. I'm getting sales immediately, right? Like on that day and days after. And it's like, oh my gosh, I just went from the last year or two of pushing this other stuff to I pivot and instantly with one new piece had this reaction. Your mind gets blown and you're like, okay, what am I doing? Like, I just didn't have the right products. It's actually really liberating too, right? Because you realize like it wasn't you and you don't have to feel like you suck, like, or your talents are not there. And it's like, oh my gosh, I just didn't have my subject matter wasn't resonating. And that's just it, or it didn't resonate enough to my ambition level of where I wanted my sales to be.
That's right. That's right. What do you have on the announcement front? I got to go pick up the kiddos.
Announcement front. Ooh, we got what? We've got 2 weeks left. Pre-Black Friday sale, guys.
Halfway through the month. Almost halfway.
We're almost halfway through. We're running a pre-Black Friday sale to join art storefronts at a discount, guys. So if you're looking to take your art business forward, and have the wind at your back, get equipped with proper art gallery website, as well as, the ongoing marketing consulting, which is the only thing that really matters, because a website is not enough without marketing. It is a glorified business card, not getting you anywhere. So yeah, if you like what we're up to, or you want to learn more, go ahead and request a demo. All right. We've got a link in the bio in this post on Facebook, YouTube, because we're live on all right now. Click on that link, fill out the request a demo form. It takes like 20 or 30 seconds. You're just putting in your information, and then somebody from our outreach team will reach out to you to take a look at your art, learn about you and your goals, what you're looking to do, and see if you're potentially a good fit to work with us, and see if we can help you. And we'll take it from there. So they can show you all the details about every single thing that we do. Yeah, we've got a big fourth quarter. The fourth quarter's already begun. The marketing for the fourth quarter is beginning in a week or two, right?
Oh,
to capitalize on the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's already begun technically.
It's technically already begun, right? But yeah, it's a great time, guys, because this, if you didn't know already, I mean, you know it intuitively. This fourth quarter for every industry is going to be the biggest online e-commerce numbers ever done in the history of the world, right? I mean, e-commerce has only been around for 20 years, but it's going to be unbelievably massive, right? Because obviously of the lockdowns and the pandemic and the way that habits have changed and everything that's going on. And so, that's coming, and it's extremely exciting. There's going to be more art sold online than ever before, which is great for everyone because you guys can all participate in it.
Yep, tremendous. And we had the workshop today, so I guess we got another one on Friday. So if you want to join an art business workshop, get involved, a little Q&A, little bobbing and weaving, you can do that. I actually think there's a link. There's not a link in the bio, but there's a link in our Instagram if you're on Instagram, or it'll be streaming on Facebook, 11 a.m. PST Friday, 1 p.m. Central.
Excellent.
Good. Leave it there.
Good discussion. Yep. All right, guys. We'll see you later.
Not one we're going to solve overnight, but I'm fired up about it nonetheless. Yeah. All right.
Good stuff.
Speak soon.